Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we have Allen Buchanan with us, and Allen comes from Arkansas, which is always fascinating for me being a Colorado boy and living in California. But somehow Allen got to California. So Allen, I'd love to hear the story of how that all came together.
Yes, thank you for having me, by the way. I really enjoy your podcast. Grew up in Arkansas, went to school at the University of Arkansas, and about a year before my graduation, I sat with my dad. We owned a family-owned and operated manufacturing business. And I said, "Dad, what's my role going to be in the company?" And he says, "I'm not going to hire you because you don't know squat." So okay. I took that as a challenge that I needed to go get employed. And one of the companies that interviewed on the University of Arkansas campus was the Procter & Gamble Distributing Company. And they had offices starting in Kansas City to the east, all the way to San Francisco to the west. And it turned out the opening that they had was in San Francisco. So I had no ties to Arkansas anymore since I was going to be working there. And I accepted a job with the Procter & Gamble Distributing Company to sell Crisco shortening to chain stores in San Mateo, California.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. And if you've ever tried to sell anything to an Italian grocer,
Crisco in particular.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yep.
That is like blasphemous to them. But somehow we managed. And through a series of promotions, I ended up in Southern California, which we've been since 1982.
That's fantastic. So at some point you transitioned into commercial real estate. How did that happen?
I got tired of chasing airplanes and was kind of too dumb to realize that as your responsibility increased with consumer goods, so did your geography. And so I found myself with a wife and a young son and on an airplane 4 nights a week, and it just wasn't working for our family. So I walked in one Saturday morning and handed my boss the keys to my company car and said, "I'm out." He says, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Don't know, but not going to do this anymore." And so I spent 6 weeks and really investigated commission sales. And specifically, I looked at insurance, I looked at wealth management, I looked at advertising, I looked at commercial real estate, I looked at computer-aided design. And it just seemed like commercial real estate really fit what I was trying to do. No cap on my income, no territory, no employees, no inventory. And I was fortunate to find my company, Lee and Associates, in 1984, and I've been there ever since.
Wow. Well, tell me about founding that. That's in '84. That's interesting.
Yeah, so I didn't personally found the company. The company was founded in 1979 by a gentleman by the name of Bill Lee. My office was formed in '83. So when I say I found it, I located it. I didn't found it, found it. I located it, found it.
Got it. Okay. And then from there on, it was commercial real estate for the last 42 years.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about your approach and what the sequence is all about.
So after 40-something years in the business, I decided that it was time to write a book. I have been very passionate about training the next generation of commercial real estate professionals, have had that role in my office for a couple of different classes. And it looked as though that was going to be a thing starting in 2025 again. So I developed an acronym, which is the sequence, because those are the steps of a commercial real estate transaction. And those are the letters that I use to explain what we do for a living to anyone that's joined me, starting with my son-in-law in 2014. So as I thought through the sequence and I thought through the hinge point of the sequence, which is the qualify framework, how you actually make sure a deal is going to pay you eventually, I designed a seminar around the qualify framework. I was presenting this to a group in Atlanta, Georgia, and one of the producers raised his hand and says, "When are you going to write a book?" And I said, well, it sounds like I'm going to write one here pretty soon because I just got the impetus. So the book is called The Sequence. It was published the middle part of 2025. It has met with rave reviews from many who have read it in the commercial real estate trade. And it's now morphed into what I call the Sequence Training, which is a whole freestanding training module built around what I write about in the sequence. So it has been it's been an amazing journey over the past year to see with whom the book's resonated, the sequence training and how that's developed, podcast appearances, speaking engagements, what have you. It's been a lot of fun.
Sounds like it. So is this a in-person training or is this a online training?
Yes to both. I do in person when I'm able, but I also have 3 engagements presently that are virtual. So,
and the book is also on audio.
Yes, sir. On Audible, the sequence on Audible. That's correct. Yep.
That's fantastic. That's great. So give us a little clue or a little summary, a little teaser for what the sequence is and what the sequence training is all about.
Yeah, so the sequence, the book, as I mentioned when we were chatting beforehand, the sequence is a double entendre. So the first part of the sequence would be the decisions that you make to form the foundation of a career. Who you love, where you live, what you do for a living, who you worship, all those are foundational to your career. So that's the first meaning of the sequence. The second meaning of the sequence, as I mentioned, steps of the commercial real estate transaction. So you have to source it, you have to evaluate it, you then qualify it, you get it under control, which would be a listing agreement or a right to represent a tenant or buyer. You execute your plan, you negotiate and close, you get paid, which is the commission, which is the last C, and then finally you expand your win. And so the training has developed as a result of those 8 letters and also keynote speaking around those 8 letters. So it's sequential. It makes a lot of sense. It's easy to understand. And I've kind of taken the soft skill of commercial real estate practice and added some science to it.
So is it specific to, well, you have the 2 sides to it, but it sounds like it could be applicable to other industries.
It is definitely applicable to other sales professions. Now, whether it could be applicable to a lawyer, a doctor, an insurance broker, or something of that nature, possibly, but really where it adds the greatest amount of tactical value is with someone in the sales profession.
What do you think the greatest mistake of most commercial real estate agents is?
They don't properly plan for the staying power needed to get ramped up in the business.
So are you speaking of the kind of new commercial real estate agent that comes in and tries to get going and they just can't sustain a business?
They can't, not only can they not sustain it, they can't create it. You know, someone asked me the other day, what's different than when you started in 1984? And there are myriad things, obviously, but the answer actually surprises most people. I believe in 1984, commercial real estate brokerage was easier than it is today. And people say, well, why is that? Well, several reasons. The first reason is there's a significantly greater amount of competition now than there was in 1984. In 1984, we didn't have multiple listing services that spanned the national footprint. So if I was a broker in Boston, Massachusetts, the last thing I would do is try to do a deal in Los Angeles, California, unless I was with a CB Richard Ellis or Cushman & Wakefield that had an office locally. So what you did as a practitioner is you farmed an area, small geography, you knew every owner, every tenant within that geography, and that's where you stayed. So if you worked hard and if you could figure out a way to differentiate yourself, you could make a very, very nice living. You know, the other thing that's changed is when I started, the industry was relatively young. Now the industry is relatively old. So as a young practitioner, you go up against an Allen Buchanan who's been doing this for 42 years. You don't have a chance to compete unless you're arm in arm with another seasoned producer. So that makes it more difficult. So more competition, an older seasoned brokerage community. And then finally, there's just so much information coming at us today that it's really difficult to focus on a specialty and focus on a geography. And that you tend to chase a lot of shiny objects. And that really creates a challenge when trying to build a sustainable practice. So when I say the biggest mistake young practitioners make is they don't plan for the downside. You better plan on not making any money in our business for a year to a year and a half, 2 years in some cases, because deals take longer to gestate, more competition, as we mentioned, and people don't plan accordingly. They say, well, gee, yeah, I understand that's the norm, but I'm good. I'm going to be able to do this. And then they get in and they realize they can't very quickly.
So that brings us to the famous question of what AI is doing to the industry and how you're using it.
Yeah, AI is an amazing tool, I believe. I actually wrote a column about AI and how it affects all the letters of the sequence. And yes, there are some sourcing tools, some tools that will help generate business for you. Certainly, agentic search has become a big thing where someone goes to chat and they ask who's the best commercial real estate broker in Orange County, California. And you better be top of the agentic search, where it used to be the search engine optimization. The evaluation piece, you can plug into whatever large language model you use, whether it's Chat or Claude or Gemini or what have you, and say, here is a fact set of the folks I'm meeting with at 2:00 today. Run me through a question series that I should ask them based upon their requirement. I've actually vibe coded an app called the Qualify app, where you can go in and you can ask the app certain questions, and based upon that, it scores your requirement based upon how qualified the requirement is and what you need to do to make it more qualified. The under control piece is the contractual piece. I don't see a lot of AI involvement there, but certainly when it comes to the execution of the deal, which is the second E, there are so many tools that allow us to execute much, much quicker, whether it's creating collateral via AI or whether it's putting together a list of tasks that needs to be done and putting that into your agent. The negotiate and close piece, sure, there's some tactics that you can probably learn via AI if you have a particularly challenging negotiation. But I would say largely that's still left up to the practitioner. And then finally, which is the expand piece, seeing a tremendous amount of use of AI when it comes to expand. And what I mean by expand is you close a deal, you do a lease, and then you need to broadcast that to those with whom that matters to start the whole sequence all over again. So I'm seeing a tremendous use of that. The graphic that you see behind you there was created by AI. I use AI to vibe code value adds to my sequence training. And it's a thing. Now, will it ever replace us? You and I were talking before we hit record. I don't think we're far away from someone being able to dial in and say, send me a self-driving car. I want to see these 3 buildings. There are instructions on the front door as to how to access it. You scan a QR code and all of a sudden you're face-to-face with the owner. You have a conversation with the owner, you take the tour, you take it to the next step, even effect removed a commercial real estate brokerage function, which is helping a buyer or a tenant locate a building. I don't think we're far off from that. Will it ever replace the personal relationships that we build over years and years and years? Who knows? But that's how I'm using it. That's how I'm seeing it applied to our business.
Well, so Lee and Associates, how many agents are with Lee these days?
1850 and 85 offices internationally.
Where else are you besides US?
Canada, UK, Mexico.
Wow. Okay, that's fantastic. So given that 1,800 agents and all the data that goes with that, what's your crystal ball saying about the future of commercial real estate?
The future of commercial real estate is changing. It is going to continue to change, but in my opinion, it's going to continue to be a relationship-driven business, which is how I differentiate from a bot. It is the real world intel that I have from doing deals and from representing owners in the marketplace that is going to add value to static information that exists.
So it sounds like you're bullish on commercial real estate.
I am bullish on commercial real estate. And frankly, you're seeing some things on the horizon. Advanced manufacturing is becoming a thing. What is advanced manufacturing? That's what we used to call a machine shop. That's a company that manufactures parts for the aerospace and defense industry. That was huge in Southern California in the 70s and 80s. It sort of took a dip. It's back.
Hmm.
You're seeing a tremendous amount of support when it comes to the infrastructure related to data centers and the construction of those data centers around the United States and how that's going to impact what we do on a daily basis. So all of those need places to do the things I described, and they're finding homes in industrial real estate. So, yeah, I believe the next few years, assuming we don't drop a nuclear bomb on someone or some other sort of black swan event like COVID, yeah, I believe the future's bright.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Lee Associates tended to focus on on the industrial side of the equation. Is that still true?
Largely industrial, although we're full service now. We have a very robust retail group led by my friends in Omaha, Nebraska, Dan Goley and Dan Dutton. We have always been very active in the office world. We have a capital markets group. We have a debt group. We have a group that does private capital investment sales. So we're full service across all the product lines of commercial real estate.
That's fantastic. Wow. Well, so if someone wanted to find the sequence and find you, where would they go, Alan?
So I will give you the Sequence Frameworks website. It is Sequence Framework, just like it sounds, just like it's spelled, sequenceframework.com. You can buy the book. You can take a look at my Qualify app, my Pipeline app. My contact information is there. If you'd like to call me, text me, 714-624-3896 at the bottom of your screen there. And then my email address is Buchanan, spelled Buchanan, at lee-associates.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn, active on X, so you can find me in those places hanging out as well.
Well, that's interesting. How are you using X? I'm curious.
I troll people and comment on their posts.
Okay. All right. And that generates some activity and interest from your side of the equation.
It does. I was rather flip there, so forgive me.
I like it.
I have at least two pieces of content that I produce on a weekly basis. One is my location advice blog, which is advice to owners and occupants of industrial buildings. And then I have a piece of content called the Tuesday Traffic Tips, which is a little video clip brokerage advice. Been doing that for 14 years.
Wow.
So,
That's incredible.
that in addition to whatever's on my mind, running into a rattlesnake in Peters Canyon while I'm hiking or something of that nature. So that's what I do on X. I also use X as a news source, as a means of figuring out what else is going on in the world without listening to our biased media. So yeah, that's the way I've used X and continue to. LinkedIn is really the platform that I concentrate on the most because frankly, it's a platform built around professions, and I find the most traction there. So that's where I spend a lot of my time.
Well, I'm going to spend a lot of time with you on LinkedIn with this video, so let's continue that down that road. I look forward to talking to you again in 3 to 6 months and see how things are progressing from here.
That would be
So
terrific.
see how the sequence is going, so to speak.
Yes, sir. How the sequence is sequencing.
All right. Well, we will talk soon.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.